We are here today at the Spanish Military Hospital Museum in St. Augustine, Florida, and I have with me one of the wonderful docents, Kim, and she's going to tell us about this location, what happens in it. Tell me about this particular building, though.
All right, this building is just one of 3 buildings that made up the hospital complex. This was Hospital East, the recuperation building. Now across the street, we had Hospital West, the surgical building. It was the largest of the 3. Unfortunately, we can't show you that one. It burned down in 1818. Now this one burned down also in 1885, but it was rebuilt. Actually, only 2/3 of it, because the building next door was already a historical building. They wouldn't let us tear it down. But it is the original foundation. Now the hospital was actually called the Royal Hospital of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And it was here from 1784 to 1821. This was still pre-germ theory, so they were working on the Galenic theory of the 4 humors of the body. This was developed by 3 Greeks, Galen, Aristotle, and Hippocrates, the father of medicine. Basically, they thought that our health was governed by those 4 fluids: phlegm, black bile, yellow bile, and of course blood. So if you were ill, they thought you had either too much or not enough of one of them. If somebody was feverish and grumpy, they thought they had too much blood, so they would do a bloodletting. And of course that person did quickly become calm. We all do when you take out a bunch of blood. If they thought you didn't have enough of a fluid, that wasn't too bad for you, because they would use diet to make you healthy again. And the Spanish were big believers in a healthy diet. That's why the patients at this hospital, they ate very well. Yes. In fact, the average diet had a base daily ration of chicken, beef, pork lard, bacon, bread, chickpeas, and the seasonal fresh fruits and vegetables.
Doesn't sound that bad to me.
No, today we call that the ketogenic diet, my favorite. Now the time period, 1784 to 1821, even though it was pre-germ theory, the Spanish were very medically advanced. In fact, they were the most advanced in all of Europe and England. This is because they were influenced very early on by the Moors. The Moors had occupied Spain for over 700 years. During this time, they were advanced in all the sciences and mathematics. They had saved the teachings of the Greeks, the Romans, and the Egyptians. Now the Moors were Islamic, and so they were very holy, and according to their religion, it is unholy to be dirty. So they were hygienic. This included washing their hands and their medical tools.
They washed their medical tools?
Yes, they washed them in vinegar water,
Wow.
which today we know kills germs. They didn't know about them, but they were killing them. In 1492, Spain told the Moors they had to go, but maintained those medical practices and grew them. And in 1563, they were the very first country to require a formal education and a license to be a physician.
You have to actually know what you're doing to be a doctor?
Well, in Spain anyway, not here necessarily. Now, they required 8 years of university, followed by 2 years of residency. Yes, sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, this is where we get ours from, but the Spanish took it a step further. Once you had your license, you were required to undergo a competency hearing every 5 years. This was to make sure you were maintaining that knowledge. Here in America, though, we did not have any requirements of any kind till 1910. Before then, anybody who wanted to be a doctor could hang up his shingle and start practicing, which is probably why the average American hospital during this period only had a 30 to 35% survival rate.
What about this one?
This one, 70 to 75%, very close to the hospitals of today. And we do think it is because of the good hygiene, the diet, and of course that education.
That's amazing.
I'm ready to start surgery if you are. They were very medically advanced, but there was one thing they didn't know how to do, and that's fix broken bones. Yes, a simple break that you don't fix it. You just immobilize it and it heals itself. But if somebody had a compound fracture or shattered bones, Those just don't heal themselves, and they did not have the skills we have today. They did know, however, what was going to happen to that patient if they didn't amputate. He was going to lose the use of that limb.
Well,
he was going to be in great pain.
He was going to die.
And that's
gangrene.
right. That's what was going to happen next. Yes. So this was a life-saving surgery. Unfortunately, it was also pre-anesthesia. We did not discover the anesthetic effect of ether till 1846. But it wasn't a problem at this hospital. Those patients didn't suffer much at all because here they used a couple of herbs and laudanum to make him quite comfortable.
Okay.
Now they added the herbs because this gave them a patient who was not only highly euphoric, but calm, sedate, and drowsy. They would doze in and out of sleep during the surgery. The physicians knew that even though he was quite comfortable, he was still conscious. That meant pain could still send him into shock and kill him. So in addition to being skilled, they were fast. They could do an arm amputation in 3 to 4 minutes, a leg amputation in 4 to 6 minutes. Pretty good, huh?
So show me the saw here.
Okay, well this is our bone saw. It's really just a hacksaw. And they could use this saw and cut through both bones in only 30 to 60 seconds. Now, there were a couple of things they had to do before they could get to that cutting.
Right.
The first thing they're going to have to do, of course, is make him comfortable. I almost forgot that.
Well, yeah.
Then they applied the petite screw tourniquet. It was invented in 1710 by a Frenchman, Jean-Louis Petit. And actually, it was the first one to completely cut off the circulation, and we still use this same design today more than 300 years later. Now, once that was on, he would grab his capital knife. Now, you'll notice that it's uniquely shaped, and they designed it for a specialized cut called the single flap angled incision, the first of its kind. Now, how it worked, the surgeon would start as far below the cutting area as he could, then he would cut up on an angle as high as he could. He came across and then reversed that angle. Now this gave him a nice flap of muscle, fat, and skin that was separated from the bone, except the muscles. They're still attached to the bones by tendons. So he grabs his Catlin blade. He gets it underneath the muscle and then runs it right down those bones. This severs the tendons and frees that flap. So he grabs a leather strap, peels the flap back, and then ties it down safely away from the cutting area so nothing will happen to it. And of course he cuts.
Off with the saw.
Off with the saw. Now he's cut off those shattered bones, but he's also cut arteries, veins, and capillaries. Yes. So
big problem. Yep.
Yes, he's going to quickly grab his tuniculum. Then he reached down between the bones, gently pulled up those cut arteries, then quickly tied them closed with a strong silk ligature. And this is similar to how we still do it in amputations today. Then he reaches into the fireplace and grabs a cottering iron. He used that red hot tip to run across the cut and seal the veins and capillaries shut. The next thing he did was pack in a Linton mixture. Now this was just ground cotton and flour, but it did the same 3 things the hemostatic Linton does in surgery today. It absorbed excess fluids, coagulated the blood, and promoted proper drainage. Unlike the hemostatic Linton, he did not have to remove it. It was all natural, so it would get absorbed by the body after it was broken up. Now once he's done that, he quickly removes the leather strap and he puts that flap of muscle, fat, and skin right back where it was. But thanks to that special cut, he's got more flap than arm. So he folds it over on top of the cut bones to protect and cushion them. Now once he's done that, he's got to sew it back together, right?
Yeah?
But here's the problem. They didn't like to sew. See, they practiced something that is still practiced in medicine today, evidence-based care. They would write down everything they did. If something was working, they continued. If not, they quickly stopped. Well, they had noticed something. There was a much higher incidence of infection during recovery when they sewed. So instead, he's going to super glue it.
That's amazing.
No, they didn't have super
They
glue
didn't have the
back
super
then.
glue.
But they did have isinglass.
Okay.
Now, isinglass is the purified